Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. The Reserve Bank has just released the final guidelines for the corporate loan recast scheme, and the guidelines are based, as we all know, on the recommendations submitted by the KV Kamath led committee. Now the recommendations are in great detail, and I'll just run through the important ratios. My colleague Ritu Singh will join in with the sector specific ceilings and floors that RBI has prescribed. But first, the key ratios. One important ratio that the banks will have to consider is the total liabilities, total outside liabilities, by which they mean long-term debt, short-term debt, current liabilities and provisions net of deferred tax liability, that divided by the total net worth of the group entities, the company and the group entities. That is one ratio. The second most important ratio that banks have to consider will be total debt divided by EBITDA. I think that's very clear. Short-term and long-term debt divided by profit before earnings, interest, before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. The other ratio, key ratio that banks will have to consider is the debt service coverage. I think that's very clear, that the total debt that can be serviced by the company and the average debt service coverage ratio. So these are the four ratios that banks will have to consider. To just give you an example, let me go to Ritu Singh. Ritu, if you can give us one idea of the ceiling and the floor that RBI has prescribed. Maybe you want to take up one item like auto components or aviation and demonstrate.
Well, simply put, there are 5 key financial parameters that banks must consider. RBI has either given the floor or the ceiling for these 5 financial parameters that will be factored into all resolution plans. There can be more parameters that banks consider, but the 5 of these are compulsory. To take an example of aviation, for instance, the total outstanding liabilities divided by net worth that you just explained for aviation, for instance, must be a minimum of 6. The total debt divided by EBITDA should be a minimum of 5.5, and the current ratio, which has been defined by RBI as the current assets divided by the current liabilities, that for aviation should be less than 0.40. For instance, the other parameters on the outstanding serviceability of debt have not been defined, but for there are 26 such sectors which this committee has identified, which include most of the stress sectors that we know: aviation, hospitality, retail, power, real estate, metals, gems and jewelry. But the sectors that have not been covered by this committee can still be restructured by banks based on their board approved policies, keeping in mind these parameters that have been laid out as a broad rule, and the August 6th circular that was originally issued by the Reserve Bank of India on the one-time restructuring of loans.
Okay. Thanks for that. There are a whole host of sectors for which the RBI circular gives for each parameter, that is total outside liabilities divided by adjusted net worth, and the net worth you have to net off the investments and loans given by the group. So for each of them, the ceiling and the floor has been given. Likewise, total debt by EBITDA for auto components, for instance, it has to be less than or equal to 4.5. For aviation, it is a little more generous. It can go up to 6. It's an elaborate table. So I know we are putting our guests in a spot, but we have with us an experienced set of guests. Abizar Devanji, the partner and national leader at EY. Krishnan ASV, the lead analyst, banking analyst at SBI Cap Securities. Shashwat Guha of Fitch Ratings, and in a bit we are going to be joined by Mr. R.K. Bansal, Managing Director and CEO at Edelweiss ARC. He has of course seen a lot of corporate debt restructuring in his earlier avatar at IDBI. But let me start this discussion. Shashwat, I don't know how much you could read through all this, but do you think that this is the right way to go through, to give a ceiling and a floor for several ratios, so that unviable companies are not even attempted for restructuring? Your thoughts?
Yes, hi, Lata. Well, I am sort of trying to grasp as much as I could. So I think clearly the approach is a bit more prescriptive. And again, these are not the final guidelines, it's just a recommendation. But, I would expect that, considering that restructuring is not really an alien concept. In the past, banks would have sort of looked or typically do look at these critical aspects at the time of restructuring. However, I think when one is trying to be too prescriptive, then that sort of brings in the element of subjectivity. But I think for me, the bigger issue is that, how does one sort of execute all of this? Because time is of essence, and as the report rightly sort of identifies that as well, because there are a lot of these operational issues as well. And then on top of that, there is this subjectivity element. So I think the way I am looking at this is that, well, fair enough, I think we've sort of taken a step forward. But now really the important thing is how does one put this into implementation, and that too within this extremely finite timeline that has been prescribed by the RBI.
But, Shashwat, they would have done this anyway. Here, now they have a guide. They anyway have to, restructure, identify companies that are capable of being restructured by December 31st and complete the restructuring process by June 30th. So the identification will have to be done. Maybe this Excel sheet with its, sieves will help them sieve out the companies that are eligible. Abizar, what do you make of this? Will this, is this the way to go? I mean, you put this into your Excel sheet and those that don't pass muster, you don't even attempt restructuring. Is that the way we should read this?
No, I wouldn't read it that way, Lata. Because very frankly, if you look at paragraph 2, it basically says, and I'll read it out to you, these sector-specific parameters may be considered as a guidance for preparation of resolution plans for a borrower in a specific sector. The resolution plan may be prepared based on pre-COVID operating and financial performance of the borrower, and the impact of COVID-19 be taken into account in Q1 and Q2 of FY21. If these are not met, then these ratios can be met by FY23. So it basically says that it gives the flexibility to the banker, and this is extremely important from a practical point of view, that the message should not go that the bankers can do a restructuring only if these parameters are met. It also says that you can go by existing parameters as long as you are coming in line with these parameters by FY23.
Okay. Well, let me toss the same thing to Behram. Behram Vakil of AZB and is joining us. Behram, the whole idea of having this Kamath committee vet the proposals of over 1,500 crore restructuring, and the idea of giving these, floor and ceiling is so that bankers feel comfortable. Now, do you think a banker or a set of bankers will feel comfortable flouting these or taking liberties with these ratios? After all, there was this big fear that they will be investigated later. So do you think these will be, sincerely respected, and those who fall beyond these ratios will not get restructuring?
No, so that's a very good question. I think, first of all, we should be appreciative of the fact that it was done in such a quick time frame. So I think that is pretty amazing.
Certainly.
How fast the committee itself, and then literally over the weekend, the RBI itself has come out with this. So we should be appreciative of that. On the point you made, yes, absolutely right. This was to give them comfort and to make sure that thereafter no questions are asked. And as you said, once again, as long as you stay within those ratios, the safety will be much higher. If for certain reasons, good reasons, I guess, which will all be recorded, you need to go beyond, then for a short time frame, in justifiable circumstances, sure, but as far as possible in these 26, they will stay with that.
Okay.
On the others, of course, the banks themselves have been given much more latitude.
Absolutely. Well, let me come to Krishnan. Krishnan, I know I'm going to ask you a really difficult mathematical question, but do you think most of the companies that are now struggling, and they are largely in hospitality and aviation and sectors like that? Now, hospitality, tourism, and restaurants, the ratios that is demanded of them is that total outstanding liabilities divided by adjusted net worth should be less than or equal to 4, and total debt by EBITDA should be less than or equal to 5. Do you think they will qualify, or do you think several may fall outside?
Yeah, hi Lata. So I think the metrics appear to me at this stage, at least for some of these very highly stressed sectors, out of whack. And what I mean by that is the current financial year is very clearly a very sharp income shock, right? So if you're expecting some of these entities that were viable as of February 2020 to recover by FY23, is that possible? My answer would be yes. But would they hold out to these numbers as things stand today, or maybe by the end of the year? I have my doubts, right? Whether it is on total debt to EBITDA, or from, say, a debt service coverage ratio. I think some of these are prescriptive, as what one of your guests said.
No, but if they reach the ratio, if they reach the ratio even by 2023, as Abizar read out, then they would qualify. So, do you think, therefore, we should expect that many of them will get restructuring?
You can put any of these numbers into a spreadsheet, Lata.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could make, even
Give fantastic assumptions, you mean?
Yeah. So, I mean to say that in spirit, if you can hold out on these numbers and imagine that in, say, 18 months' time, some of these entities in a certain sector can emerge out of trouble, can emerge to a pre-COVID level, which brings them into threshold levels, great. But I think there will be non-homogeneous treatment across the sector. Now, this is a broad template, which is very nice to have, but I suspect there won't be too many straight-jacketed cases that you take a number, that you take an entity, it will exactly fit into these numbers. That may not always happen.
Abizar, to pick up from your point, I think what you were referring to in terms of compliance, some flexibility allotted to banks, that is only as per the recommendations. But if you read the final guidelines issued by RBI, point number 8, it says that lenders have to ensure compliance at least to the total outstanding liabilities divided by net worth ratio at the time of implementing the resolution plan, and the other ratios by 31st of March 2022. So are we correct in assuming that at least that one ratio has to be implemented immediately? For the rest, you do have time until 2022.
Ritu, you're right. The total outside liabilities to total net worth ratio is something that they're saying that has to be maintained, and I think that's the same point. It doesn't talk about profitability. It talks about a capital structure, and it basically says that if you do not have the right level of capital in your system, then you're not eligible for a restructuring, and that's a fair point. So if you erode in your net worth, for example, they'll go and fetch capital. And if new capital is not willing to come and bet on your plan, then frankly, you will not be able to produce a hockey stick.
So,
and the other thing is, frankly, the amount of checks and balances that are there, which is also there in the June 7th circular, far too many people have to lie for this plan to fail, to really be a big hockey stick. There's a TV study, and there's hundreds of other valuations and many other things.
No, 1 minute, Abizar. As you say, it is this total outstanding liabilities divided by adjusted net worth. That is the ratio that has to be available, or that has to be, expected of the company, expected to be complied at the time of implementation, or has to be maintained by the plan by March 22. So they are giving a 1-year time frame even for this ratio. Now, Shashwat, to come to you, do you think that, do you think this can be implemented if the company is willing to put in, if the promoter is willing to put in capital? So then you would meet the criteria of total outstanding liabilities divided by adjusted total net worth by 22 if capital is bought. So it's not necessary that it has to be met only at that time. Shashwat?
Yes, well, no, I mean, I hope so. But I think if history is anything to go by, and we've seen a lot of things at different names, SDR, 525, but some of them easier said than done. And which is why I keep coming back to my point on implementation risk and execution risk, because all said and done, I mean, you can be, you can run the different permutation combinations, and in fact, in spirit, if you see, the broad tenets of the restructuring again is not very different from what has been implemented in the past. I mean, sure, there have been new inclusions. It's been more probably, perhaps it'll be probably more closely monitored. There are more prescriptions now, but ultimately it boils down to how do we actually fare and implement these terms and conditions on the ground, and how do we ultimately monitor it? Because
of course,
if our performance is anything to go by as far as restructuring is concerned, that has been very poor.
Okay, no, I agree with you. But since this, there is this history of restructuring which did not succeed, and then that ultra over investigative phase that bankers have been put through. Now that these ratios have been given, I would assume that bankers will be more realistic in their assumptions. We have someone who has seen the period of the CDR with us. Mr. R.K. Bansal has joined in. Mr. Bansal, I don't know how much of the circular you could see, but elaborate ceiling and floors have been given for 5 different ratios for 26 sectors by the Kamath panel, which RBI has included in the circular. Do you think this will mean that we will get a more realistic set of resolution plans when banks sit down to resolve?
I think, Lata, what I have seen up to now, it's a good move by RBI and Kamath committee. But the 2-3 things new, which is I find as compared to, let's say, CDR time.
Yes.
One is instead of plain debt equity ratio, it is linked to adjusted net worth, and which has been a big problem in the earlier round because many people had structured or leverage in multiple levels.
Okay.
So adjusted net worth criteria normally was not being followed earlier. So this is a good thing.
Yes.
Second thing, I find a new addition in debt to EBITDA ratio, which was, though banks used to look at it, but in CDR it was not. But the point I am just trying to say is, I think the issue we need to see is by putting these restrictions, perhaps what RBI wants is that restructuring should be mainly only for this COVID-related period.
Yes.
I think that is how Abhijar also mentioned that if net worth is weak, even the initial round itself, I think then companies may not be eligible for restructuring. So it's a, good move. We have to look into the details, but I still feel making it too tight also perhaps then it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Then we have seen that in Fab 18 circular, June 19 circular.
Yeah. No, but since they have said, since you have said that adjusted net worth of adjusted tangible net worth, they are allowed to bring in equity by March 22 as well. That provision is given, I think it was clause 7 or 8. Clause 8 of the circular. Actually, Behram, on that issue, I was driving to this issue to ask you this question. In the last hearing of the interest on interest case, the court has said none of the COVID cases can be declared NPA when the moratorium period ends. Of course, this is an interim ruling of the court and we still have to get the final judgment. Now, doesn't this leave the banks in a quandary? If the court were to rule that COVID hit cases cannot be declared NPA, then how will the bank not give a restructuring?
No, I think, Lata, 2 things very quickly I wanted to say from the, past lessons, because we have had years of lessons. One is it's clearly just for COVID hit. and that is dead clear. We can debate about it, but that was the rationale. And the second is that we have this thing of elongating time and going on for years and years and pushing under the carpet. So again, there are tight time frames. Many people may feel they're too tight, but those were two absolutely abiding principles. The point you're raising about the Supreme Court, I think it was really because, as you say, the case is still part heard, and they need to decide on that.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Also, they knew that I'm sure someone must have argued that this restructuring proposal was coming. And unless they, go to the length of saying that you must waive interest, though very good arguments have been made already saying that the interest, there is also the depositor side. So you have to look at both sides. And just waiving interest by the Supreme Court, without looking at the holistic picture may not make sense. So I doubt we will end up in that limbo. I think now having all the facts, the court will probably make sense of the whole.
Mr. Krishnan, just quickly your comments on, the financial parameters that have been given across these 26 sectors. For instance, the debt service coverage ratio of over 1, you think a large chunk of companies that had overdues of only 30 days as of March 1 will be able to fall into this bracket, or will several of them be excluded, you think, because of the stringent terms and conditions that have been laid down? Broadly, what is your sense?
Yeah, so Ritu, historically in the run-up, and I think the committee report is also probably, highlighting that on page number 9. It's basically telling you that 70% of the banking system has been hit by COVID, right? But 60% of that 70% was already impacted even without COVID, right? So if you're looking at the current financial ratios for some of these sectors, which is essentially 42% of the total debt in the system today, that proportion of the debt has been further pushed to the brink. So I don't think they are anywhere close to these threshold numbers at all.
Okay.
But can they get there in, say, 2 years' time? My answer would be some of them will. And in some cases, you might have to take a leap of faith. So you will need to be subjective. I think banks will exercise that subjectivity in a few cases, absolutely.
No, that would be absolutely required of the banker. I mean, that is why he's a commercial banker. These are just broad guidelines. But Shashwat, I mean, I simply want to come to this point again. There is this sword hanging on the banking sector in the form of this interest on interest case, where 2 or 3 things can happen. One, the court could say that interest on interest sounds like a penalty to them, which will negate the bedrock of banking. So, Shashwat, do you think that can throw the entire banking sector into a serious problem if the court were to rule that interest cannot be levied on interest?
Yeah, so no, that's a big if, right? If there is indeed, if the interest per se is interest on interest is waived off. And again, this was a moratorium always. I mean, it was not a waiver.
Yes.
But if the interest on interest is waived off, then arguably banks will have to take some amount of NPV loss, right? And the question is, if banks actually end up taking some NPV loss on these accounts, the question is, are they really standard? So I think it's a big if at the moment, and we'll have to sort of wait and see. But I think let's not forget that all this, restructuring and all this is sort of converging with all of that, and I believe that ultimately you can call it by any name, but under restructuring, I think banks do have the provision to extend moratorium also to the borrowers. So I think it may not happen that way, but ultimately, say if some of those borrowers were to sort of follow through into this new resolution plan and are allowed moratorium, I think it will happen irrespective. But again, I just don't know honestly that which way the pendulum will swing in this case.
Okay.
So hard to say.
No, it's also possible that if that is done, a lot of borrowers may even again move the court saying that if I had known interest on interest would be waived, I would have actually sought moratorium, and I am being punished because I am a good borrower, and I have adhered to paying interest on time, even against severe problems. So it does look like it can be a protracted legal problem, and I hope the court doesn't take the banking system down that path. But we are out of time. Mr. Bansal, closing comments from you on the circular issued by the Reserve Bank. Do you think this will prevent kicking the can down the road?
I think so. I think as compared to earlier restructuring rounds, it is restricted. But I look at this circular basically as a continuation of moratorium plus IBC suspension and this restructuring, which can give you 2 more years. So if you really add up, it is like giving 2.5 years.
Okay.
And if within that system, if the companies which are satisfying this, they will be eligible, not everyone. So that is the only point, but it should work, I feel.
Okay. Abizar, closing comments?
Yeah, I think it'll work only if the bankers don't decide to follow it to the T and say that unless these ratios are met, we will not restructure.
Okay.
I think banks need to show the flexibility. The reason this circular has been devised is to give a framework so that there is a level of sanity left into it.
Okay. No,
But
I think
they have to realize that ratios won't be met immediately. I think the FY23 deadline is critical for bankers to note and work towards it. And if that happens, the circular will.
no, there is a reason why the circular uses may be, in every, as the case may be in every instance. So it is not using it all that hard and fast in terms of its language. Shashwat, what is your sense? Do you think the circular will prevent too much of bunching up of NPAs down the line? A pragmatic way to go?
From our perspective, Lata, we will probably converge back to our older methods of looking at stressed asset ratios rather than just the gross NPL figure. Because I think we will go back sort of somewhat to the older days, and I think it only makes sense to sort of look at it holistically.
Okay. Well, we are completely out of time. Krishnan, very quickly, how do you think the shares are going to react tomorrow? Do you think you're going to see a lot of negativity in some of these sectors where it will be difficult to face the ratios? Do you expect red on the screen?
No, there could be some relief, I think, Lata. There could be some relief. Yeah, but I do think we are kicking the can down the road.
We are kicking the can.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Behram, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with Abizar as long as we keep those timeframes in mind and build in some flexibility. I'm cautiously optimistic that it should work pretty well for those who are really targeted for this.
All right, gentlemen, I know that you have a lot of reading to do, but on preliminary reading, Abizar Divanji, Behram Contractor and Behram Vakil, my apologies. Behram Vakil and R.K. Bansal believe that this is a pragmatic set of ratios and, bankers will apply some discretion. Krishnan believes that we are kicking the can down, and Shashwat believes, is also skeptical, believes that now they will start looking at banks with amount of stressed loans. So you will not just look at NPAs, you will look at stressed assets. So there are 2 skeptics and 3 who think that this is a pragmatic set. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us with your first thoughts on the circular for restructuring of loans.